I should say to the folks that are still around and that came in after I introduced Dale. Dale Nelson is an old friend of mine, and he knows more about this software really than anyone else. So
I invited him to show up, and I'm glad he did. And I would love to hear any suggestions about how this could be a better presentation. How I could, I was going to try to figure out, how to get people to interact more and stuff like that.
Well, they have to have their questions because it is new, and they have to figure out how new it is. I mean, and also figure out how it's going to be. It's clear that, a practitioner is going to want to know, can I do this for a client in order to build up a sense of context for things that might be presented as a comparison. And this is what, it's almost like creating a metaphoric background for the client in some way. If you pick out some people that are, but that's, a direction to explore. It's not exactly the direction that I would be taking it myself, because yes, we can do that, and it would be something. But it seems like it occurred to me that what we're looking for is something that I'm still interested that it confirms a sense that you have all these people that have pardon me, little bits of identifiable characteristics, like something they've done, something they, quirks that they were known for.
Right.
Right. You're looking at biography, little details that show up as little flashes of that must be the Venus, conjunct whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, that's still a fascination to see that you can you want to find the people who are most dramatically combining some of those in order to to make it jump out at you. Yes. Like Stan Groff's counterpart.
Right.
I don't know if you presented that, but it was like,
I didn't. Yeah. That is something
that I posted to the group. So I've shared that with them. Actually, I should have said, Stan Groff is a counterpart of mine, because we both have a pretty tight T-square with Mercury, Saturn opposition, and Uranus square.
Okay.
So really, he's my most famous.
And he's contemporary, more or less.
And most contemporary counterpart. Yeah. So,
I find that aspect of having something reflected in the biography, that you are starting in the astrology with a fine, just a very fine, small starting point in terms of completing the picture, but you're getting a lot of, distribution of that picture, because you find all these cases and then you go looking for something that'll be dramatic. I think you could find, you're not going to be getting anybody that doesn't have anything to offer. You want it to be theatrical in its clarity.
We would like that.
And you have many cases like that.
Right. But I think what I
presented today with these two different groups of four.
Yes.
Would you agree that that's like maybe the most dramatic that you've seen?
That's the one comment that I had early on. It was like, it has me thinking about, yes, it's very clear. You set up here's a contrast that as an astrologer, I'm looking at the planetary thing and I I say this is the farthest away, the furthest distance between groups.
Yeah.
People with one configuration are going to be quite separate from the people at the other end. And it showed up that way. That is very dramatic.
And this was what makes it more dramatic
for me is it was the very first time that I tried to do this.
That separation.
I tried to do this kind of, let's pick, okay, I've got my Sun, Venus, Neptune people. Who would I expect to be dramatically different?
Yes.
And then I come up with my Mars, Saturn, not to mention Uranus.
Right.
And so
but I'm intrigued that there was a question you mentioned. I like to include Sun, and we can't include Moon because of reasons.
Right.
But those are the two things that I would want to include, and if there were a way to include a moon, I know there's a problematic, but anyway, the Sun sort of forces it to become something that would be central to the biography. Does it? Wouldn't you agree?
That is the way. That's
yeah.
What I think too.
Actually, when I first started out, I had no rationale. It was purely an intuitive thing that, I need,
right.
I want the Sun in there.
Right.
But that makes total sense, doesn't it?
And it does. And I would think that something similar could be said about Moon, as complex as it is, because it's one of the lights.
And, once you narrow it down, once you use the other planets, other than the Moon, to narrow it down, then you can use the Moon, even if you're looking at people who were born just a few days apart, right? So that's enough for the Moon to move quite a bit.
I was looking at just that question with sunrise charts for those 5 badass guys.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And because they were all coming under one umbrella, and they're all born either on the same day or a day or two apart, you have only a couple of days to step through. But if you have them all set up in Planet Dance, you can look both, look across and look at the differences.
Right.
And clearly the Moon's position and how it might change will be a refinement. If you're looking at it as a chart that you can say, okay, these people have this combination, but now I can go deeper, seeing the whole chart for this counterpart person.
Yeah.
And watch among the group what may add some detail into what's at work there. That's what I'm thinking. This is something that I just did this morning, so it's kind of fresh in my mind. And that's where my comment about, the within group variation would be something interesting to pursue. That's kind of what caught my attention this morning about it. And I'm interested in the, really deeper aspects of how we understand these planets.
I think
so. You know what I'm saying?
You can use this, and this is something I didn't even
get into that I would like to get into, which is we don't know the planets as well as we could.
Yeah.
And just like archetypes, like James Hillman talks about, you don't see them by themselves. They occur together, like in dreams and so on, and in charts. If you pull one of them out, it's hard to decide what it means in isolation. And of course, when you combine them, then that just complicates matters, right? But that's what this is good for, maybe.
Well,
what do you say about Sun, Mars, Saturn, Uranus?
You're making a statement by setting up this double-ended spectrum study, you're getting results at finding things that you expect based on it's like, maybe a seasoned understanding of what to expect with some planets put together.
Well, it takes,
but
yeah.
Yeah, as you were saying, you're kind of learning, how to go as you proceed. So this is, I think, what you've been doing all along, following your nose, following your gut, following your understanding of what might be useful here. And I think that if this is the first time you've looked at groups separated in that way, I find that just a fascinating moment to witness. Because
well, what's fascinating is I have delayed doing this for quite a while. I mean, I have had, debates with myself about, am I really ready to go to the looking at these groups? I mean, I wasn't really thinking in those terms. I was thinking, well, I'm really fascinated with just what I'm doing with, pick an individual that I want to study and then see if I can find their counterparts. And so for the longest time, that really kept me going. But then I started thinking, well, I knew that was the next step, and I held off on taking that step for quite a while. And now that I've taken it, by golly, I'm going to do something with it.
Okay.
So,
well, I find that, I mean, the way that you chose it there, it's interesting to me because of some considerations that, I'm using about things in the background, and these planetary oppositions by house or by sign, to me, are standing out as really something that hasn't been studied in quite the way that I'm envisioning. So the fact that you picked the natural opposite planets, right?
Yeah.
Venus, Mars, right?
And
you probably have a
and
Saturn moon in there or a Saturn sun.
The next thing that I would do would be Venus, Sun, Venus, Jupiter, I guess, because I would have the two benefics.
Right. Well, kind of. You had what was that first group? Was Venus, Neptune?
Yeah.
And
that's very similar. I mean, I would wonder. I would be interested to see if I get similar results. I think Jupiter is not as poetic as Neptune, so I would not expect as many poets.
Well, but it would be interesting to see how that changes.
Yeah.
Just comparing that, because now you've got a way to end up with some kind of reflection of the lore around these planets that we've absorbed over time, and any instincts about what they could mean at deeper levels or whatever, that would all be tested if you find a way to get a little bit further into it. And so I'm today I'm thinking that sunrise chart to me makes a whole lot of sense as a tool to understand in the context of these people whose outstanding, to me, there's something significant in its own right about the sunrise chart. Absolutely. I think we talked about that at some point, but anyway, the fact that it's now available as an immediate way of viewing something that comes up as a counterpart, a day and a place, and everybody's there to see what it means. And if you see a coherent, you're not looking at the nativity per se, but everybody has this sunrise chart on their birthday.
It is a significant event.
And because it's in the birthplace, it's close to something that can relate to me. You're getting some significant information about the person involved. And that's what we're looking at. Kind of, we're saying, how, if we look at that chart and we look at the biography that's listed that doesn't have a time to it,
Right.
somehow that's on the same level. It's like, okay, there's some slipperiness about, okay, detail. You would expect that detail from the chart that you could surmise about the sunrise chart would show up somewhere also in that biography. And I would argue that that's a pretty important reflection for a biography that's based on a nativity we don't have the time for. Anyway, I'm also pretty convinced that if we rub all these planets together with biographies that they point to, it'll become somehow clearer.
Well, I've thought of, what if, what I've done for these two planet combinations, what if there was a whole big book full of every combination, like, like the archetypal universe, which Ren wrote, is a pretty fat book in itself.
Yeah.
And so that would be quite a challenge. But I think it would be, I'm starting to think about that. Something along those lines. Anyway, hopefully people will follow up and maybe find out they want to do something with this on their own, and they'll get fascinated. So who knows?
It's found a place in my office.
Yeah.
And of course, we've had some pretty nice discussions about it along the way. And to find it that it's so fresh, I didn't realize it was the first time you did this.
Well, you mean the first time that I
you this particular
this kind
distinction.
Yeah.
This group separation idea.
It's brand new.
Is a wonderful step into kind of the next step.
Next step.
Yeah. Compare and contrast.
Compare and contrast. Isn't that what they tell you in school?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Right.
Anyway.
So
I guess.
So I guess we're still recording, but I think we've run out of.
I think we're done.
I think we're pretty much done.
Should we officially wrap it up?